Okay, one thing to know, the sound quality is a little rough throughout this episode. Now, bear in mind, there are moments when we are on a boat traveling at high rates of speed as we settle into the Abermale Sound to pull crab out of cages in the water. Other times, we are just in high winds on the coastline, so you're going to hear some of the environment during the show. But soak it in. This episode showcases the lives of the otherwise nameless people that work every day to help provide food, not just for the local community, but for the country.
You're listening to the NC F&B Podcast, part of the OG Podcast Network. The NC F&B Podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFBPod. This episode sponsored in part by Food Scene. That's foodseen.com, providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. And now, enjoy the show.
The purpose of this week's episode is to understand why we support local farmers, fishermen, and in this case, crabbers. It's softshell crab season in North Carolina, and we were fortunate enough to be invited to the Outer Banks at peak season with James Clarke and Bill Hartley of Postal Fish Company in Pittsburgh and Serge Falcoz-Vigne of Saint Jacques. Now, James's childhood friend Troy Boyd is our guide for this expedition. Without further ado, hello, and thank you for listening to the NC F&B Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. We're out here in Colington on the Outer Banks, about to do some crabbing.
Yeah, some softshell crabbing.
Softshell crabbing. I was going to say, you look a little crabby this morning.
Well, we did wake up at 2:30 in the morning to drive
out here.
So Bill and James from Postal Fish Company brought us out here. Colington, right? And we said,
yep. Yeah, this is our guide for today. Troy, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, I'm Troy Boyd, and I grew up with Jamie from little fellas running around hunting and fishing. So,
how many times you guys been arrested?
We were too young then. We were under the radar, but
right.
It's a good thing.
Troy and I have known each other since we were 7 years old, and that's all we did when we were kids is just hunt and fish. I mean, other kids were out playing with Matchbox cars and shit, and Troy and I were playing commercial fishermen, and he got to do it.
Well, I don't know if it's a great thing, but I did stick to it. So
and now James cooks it. You catch it, he cooks it.
There you go. He's probably on the better end of it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So you own Fowl Hooked.
Yes, it is we do duck guiding service, waterfowl hunting on the Outer Banks.
Okay.
And we run a nearshore boat out of Pirates Cove Marina in Manio.
So what should we expect to see today? So we're gonna see softshell crabs.
I figured we would tour these shedders, let Jamie. I mean, he's the big time. This is what they do for a living.
We're about to speak with Jamie Parker Jr., a commercial fisherman in Colington, North Carolina. Jamie is a fifth-generation crabber who gets out there in the Abermale Sound every morning with his father, Jamie Sr. Now, Jamie Jr. is a young guy. He's a cool dude. He is super prideful about his family, about his boat, about what he does for a living. It's really breathtaking and refreshing to see someone so dedicated to what they do and what they've done. I mean, he talks about lineage and what his family is set to do in the future.
I'm Jamie Parker Jr., a commercial fisherman out of Colington, North Carolina. We're doing our soft shell season now, and I can show you all the steps of how the soft shells go through their molding stage, which is how they grow. It's also their reproductive time, and I can show you all how everything works. But what goes on, it's in May and June is when, the big time of it. We'll get some smaller runs later on in the season, but we set pots for the crabs, and when they start, it starts out at your male peelers that shed first, and the peelers are the stage before they shed when they're still hard. So we set pots in, and they actually just crawl into the pot to get away from any predators. They go in there and feel like they have a safe place to shed. And then when it really gets busy, all these crabs that y'all are seeing in the shedder, they're all females. And how you can tell the mature female has a V apron. You can see her V here, and when they're mature, it's round. So when that female, when she reaches this stage, she'll never shed again. She will not get any bigger. Once it gets hard, that crab is done growing, and they are bred.
So that she's about to shed then?
She already has shed.
Oh,
yep, she is soft.
Oh, wow.
Any of these that are in the shedder, what you can see, let's see if I can find a buster for you. You can see the shell starting to open up.
Oh, cool.
And she will back right out the whole crab out of that shell until, this will show you the difference. This crab here came out of that shell. So what happens, the shell opens up and she backs her whole everything out, and she's soft. And right now at this time, that's their most vulnerable stage. They because they're so soft, they don't have a lot of strength.
Okay.
And what goes on, your male Jimmy crab, just like what y'all would get for picking crabs, where your regular blue crabs, they will actually pick up the females and carry them around and protect them, and that's when they mate with them. And then
isn't that romantic?
Yeah. And then in the fall, her apron will open up and it'll look like a yellow sponge, and that's all of her eggs this fall. And they'll rub them off on the bottom in the late summer and fall, and you'll start catching. Actually, the biggest egg time is actually right now. They're busting, but they carry until the eggs come out in the spring, and they rub them off.
But that happens in here?
No, that's in the sound. We
okay.
don't. That's the females. That's what'll happen. Like if I was to leave this crab in the shedder for another 4 hours, it would get hard till you couldn't do anything with it. It'd be like a hard crab again.
Okay.
And so they'll go through the whole stage. The smaller crabs, they might shed 4 and 5 times a season, the little small ones. These will shed once and they're done. So what goes on, we put them in the tanks. You have to check them around the clock every 4 hours. And we take them out, and you leave them in the water until they'll feel like sandpaper on their back. You can feel that one. And that's when he'll live out of the water. We take them out, pack them in wax boxes, and put them in a walk-in cooler, and then they're good until we take them to market. So we sell to a restaurant and a wholesale dealer here, and the crabs that we catch today, they're picked up this afternoon, and they'll be in New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, all over tomorrow morning.
What's the typical season? How long is it?
May and June is always the best of it. Mother's Day seems like it's always the peak of it for us, but it's all weather dependent. Last year was earlier because it was warmer weather early than what it was late.
Didn't we have 2 seasons last year?
We did. You get a second run. A lot of times you'll get a second run, but it all just depends. Sometimes it's real good. Sometimes it's pretty slow.
Yeah.
And so it just all depends on what's going on with the crabs at that time. So we'll go right into, as soon as the peeler is over, we'll go back into setting our hard crab pots, and then we'll do that all the way through November. And you can crab here. We can crab until the 15th of January. But it's all water temperature. Once the water temperature gets below 53 degrees, the crabs really quit. And then I roll over into the wintertime. I do a guide service, a duck hunting guide service, where I take hunters all winter.
Okay,
so
cool.
That keeps us busy that time of year.
So you're setting pots out in the bay or the ocean?
We're in the sounds here.
Sound.
We set the pots, and for the females, you actually put your big Jimmy male crab, like people would steam. You put them into a little divider in the pot, and he puts off a pheromone scent, and he attracts all the females to him. And
that's how I got dates back in high school.
Yeah, that's right.
My scent.
That's how they get protection from the big Jimmy crab, so they go in the pot for him to tote them around. They call them doublers. They call them double crabs, and so he totes them around, and then they and then we go out and clean the pots out, dump the pots, and get the crabs out.
So just a point of reference. So we're in Colington, North Carolina, which is essentially the western side of the island of the Outer Banks.
That's right. That's right. It's one of the little islands off the Outer Banks.
Yeah. So if we're talking about Duck, Kill Devil Hills, just off Manio when you're coming off
we would be right in between Kill Devil Hills and Manio is where we're at.
Yeah. Now, is that because of where we're at geographically, the island itself is facing west, or into the sound. So we're not off like the major coastline, like not the Atlantic coastline.
Yeah, we're not
inside.
in the ocean. We're inside. We're in the sound. We're in Abermale Sound is where we're
and
at.
is that's why the crabs come in here for protection?
Yeah, well, that's where they live at. They live in the sounds here, and that's where we crab. It'd be Abermale, Pamlico, and Croatan Sound, Roanoke Sounds.
Yeah.
And that's where we do our crabbing at. But it's a very good estuary, for the crabs and a good habitat for them. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at one of these little tubs you have here, but you've got, I mean,
there's about 400 crabs is what we can
400 crab in general? Wow.
And at this point, so how long are these will these crabs be in these tubs until they?
Well, if we catch them and they're ready to shed, they'll be here, 2 days, and they're going to shed out and do their thing.
So at this time of the year, are you just bringing in pots and pots?
Well, we don't bring the pots. You leave the pots out.
Right.
But we just bring the crabs in, put them in the shedders, and we have to grade them. We call them green and rank. The rank crabs they're ready to shed, and then the green crabs, they'll be a few days, and then they'll be ready to shed. If you mix them, they'll eat each other. The green crabs aren't quite ready, and they're still in their mind. They want to eat, and they'll eat the soft crabs.
It's crab eat crab world, man.
Yeah.
The next voice you're about to hear is James Parker Sr. He's the 4th generation crabber and Jamie's father.
Maryland crabs you hear about,
Yeah.
they're actually Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
You hear that, Maryland?
That's right. They
We finally got some crabs back in the Chesapeake Bay up there, but I'd say for 10 years, I would say 80% of the crabs come out of Curry Tuck, Albemarle area.
Yeah.
The whole state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
The only way they can breed is when that crab is soft.
Yeah.
That's the only time, and once she gets bred like that, that's the last time she'll ever shed.
She's full grown.
When they mate, comes this fall, she'll get the orange liquid type eggs inside of her, and they'll go next spring, and the eggs will actually, when they go to bust out, she blows the eggs out of her, and that's where you see like sponge crabs or bust crabs. And an average crab, I think, what do they say, 500,000 eggs?
So one crab.
Will have.
500,000?
Yeah, and she will go around the inlet and let the tide push her back forth on the shoals, and it rubs the eggs off the bottom of her. Yeah. And the eggs and stuff kind of go back and forth with the tide.
That's what I was telling you about that orange squishy looking sponge that she gets in her apron, and that's what it is. She rubs them off, they turn brown, and then she'll rub them right off on the bottom.
And so will all those eggs become crabs?
That's all crabs.
They're all crabs, and some of them becomes fish food.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When it comes to vodka, it starts at the farm. Social House Vodka sources corn locally from a farmer who plants non-GMO corn. And because it's made from corn, it's also gluten-free. Social House Vodka comes from Kinston, North Carolina, and sources water from the ancient Black Creek Aquifer. Social House Vodka. Live socially, enjoy responsibly.
This next part you're about to hear is on a boat, and we are flying really fast in the Abermale Sound. Matt has a recorder, and he's holding on for dear life and speaking to the father, Jamie Parker Sr., about crab life, while Chef Serge and I are just standing in the middle of the boat, balancing and trying to not fall off into the ocean.
So, Jamie Parker Sr., you were just about to explain this area and the fact that your family goes back 5 generations, is it?
On my dad's side, my cousin has traced us back to the 1780s. They come here, we were shipwrecked back here, and it goes back to come over from Europe.
Okay.
And it's European, German. And on that side, and my mom's side goes back to the native local people that was here on the island way back when. And supposedly it's supposed to be one of the off tribes from the Iroquois Indians from Illinois.
Okay.
And which is part of the Cherokee Nation that you hear in North Carolina.
Gotcha. And so that's how you guys know all about the land and how to hunt and fish. It's kind of in your DNA almost.
It really helps, as far as having, the knowledge of the land, by living here. And after growing up here, you know everything. And before we even had electronics, all we had was the shove pole to see what the bottom is. I know what the bottom is in the sound in this local area, without having any electronics at all. Because
amazing. And when did you start commercializing this and actually make it into a business?
I have been fishing gill nets since I was in elementary school because I didn't like the clothes that my mom was buying me for school. So I went out and bought my own with money I made gill netting when I was 10 and 11 years old.
And then so you would just get local people to buy them from you and had a little extra cash?
Well, we would, my uncle has got a retail seafood store, and they would buy a lot of the fish and have it in their showcase, some of the local fish.
Okay. And then when did you start to get serious about it? Now you have a couple of boats and all the crab tubs and all that.
Once I was about 16, I started doing it all during the summer, to make money. I bought my vehicles, everything else, by working. And after that, once I got out of school, I've been full-time at 18.
Wow. And you created a business for your son, and your whole family's involved, right?
That is correct. My wife's family, they have a restaurant out here on the beach, and we try to make sure that all the products that we can produce, that they try to serve them in the restaurant for a local.
Amazing. So you have an actual place an end result for everything you catch also.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And the people, people that know seafood, we try to sell the shrimp and stuff too, if you can get them. And people that know seafood really know when shrimp are local from the area.
How does one know?
It has a lot to do with the salinity of the water, especially on your shrimp. We have a big change in salinity of water as you go north into Albemarle Sound.
So on a very general scale, could you say that the saltier the water, how does that affect the shrimp?
The shrimp, they cannot live in fresh water. Mm-hmm. They want to be in a brackish, and the brackish water can change from average rainfall. It might move 10 miles difference from where their northern range is, and which makes a big difference on catching wise, where you can draw and stuff for the shrimp.
From complete novice on a taste profile, if I want the best shrimp, do I want it from saltier water or more fresh, a higher percentage of fresh water?
It all depends on the acquired taste. I like it that comes out of the brackish water more so, and there's a lot of folks that rather have them out of saltier water.
Okay.
It all depends on what you're used to eating.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we just dropped anchor, and we're pulling up some pots. Looking for color and V-shape, right? So that's a V-shape.
Yeah, you see the V-shapes.
Yeah.
They have more pink in them.
Yeah.
So
these are staying.
They're the riper crab.
How many fingers have you lost?
I still have all of mine.
But they hurt like a bitch, don't they?
Sometimes they can bring a little sniffle to your face.
Your big jimmies, your big male crabs in summertime when those things get mean.
Claws are sharp and they cut.
So as luck would have it, we happen to be in Colington on the peak day of the season. To help explain the sheer volume of soft-shell crab on a peak day, we spoke with the manager of Endurance Seafood, Christina Bridges.
Everybody calls me Kissy.
So how many?
Right at 3,000 dozen soft shells yesterday, and we'll go more today. Probably I feel like we'll be over 4,000 dozen today. But we're in our peak right now for soft shells. Today will be my peak day.
Yeah, you heard right. 3,000 dozen soft-shell crabs yesterday, and more like 4,000 dozen or 48,000 soft-shell crabs were caught today. Kissy is also the daughter of Endurance Seafood's owner Murray Bridges. Murray is one of the first crabbers in the Outer Banks. We hear his hoy-toiter brogue, or high-tider as I would say, speak about the benefits of the North Carolina Sea Grant.
Really promoted was Sea Grant. It's a North Carolina state and a government both organization. And they're the ones that promoted, and they brought it down. I mean, not for shedding the grass, but they more or less brought it down from Maryland and Virginia, and brought it down to us and everything. And they're the ones that really helped us out on shedding this way.
North Carolina Sea Grant's mission is really just there to provide science-based information, sustainable use, and conservation of ocean and coastal resources to benefit communities and the economy as well as the environment. They're really helping out the local fishermen.
So when they got down to the bottom line of it, it's really about a 95% reduction.
Spending time on the docks, you talk to people, you talk to fishermen, you hear their plight. You understand why it's difficult to be a local fisherman and not in a major commercial sense. We actually spoke with a gentleman, David Wilson, fisherman. To paint the picture, David Wilson, he looks like a fisherman. He sounds like a fisherman. This is a hulking, older man whose sunburnt skin and raspy voice just makes you understand what it's like to live out there. This guy thinks about things a lot. He thinks about society, economics, and how the government is trying to, in effect, help out, but by accident, really make some hardships for the local fishermen.
And he said, well, we went back 3 years of trip tickets. This is the flounder biologist in Morehead City.
Captain Wilson spoke for 33 minutes without stopping, speaking passionately about what he felt.
And I said, was that the whole number, or did you divide that by?
Through a lot of what he said, he made a point that it's interesting. His brother is a philosopher and said this point to him.
He said, you got 100% of the United States population on my hand. 20% are under the age of 18 or in college. 20% are over the age of 65 or retired, drawing Social Security. 20% work for the county, state, or federal government. 20% are unemployed or getting some kind of government help. That only leaves 20% left working to support the other 80. Now, if you want to keep regulating out the 20%, what do you expect the country's economy to do?
This segment is brought to you by the Triangle Wine Company. Visit Triangle Wine Company stores in Morrisville, Cary, and Southern Pines, North Carolina. Or order your wine and beer online at trianglewineco.com. And be sure to use our promo code NCFB to receive 10% off your purchases. Triangle Wine Company.
Last Monday, Matt and I worked with James Clarke and Bill Hartley at their new restaurant in Pittsburgh, Postal Fish Company, along with Ricky Moore of Saltbox Seafood in Durham. 1 week after we went crabbing in the Outer Banks, Matt provided wine pairings, and I made cocktails that paired with a multi-course softshell crab dinner. We just finished and sat down to put a cap on today's episode as well as a fantastic week. Here you go. All right, we are closing this episode of the NCFB podcast, and I still am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I still am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And we have just finished the aforementioned softshell crab dinner with the chefs, James Clarke and Bill Hartley. Gents?
Yeah, and Ricky was here. We ate that. He's not with us now to talk. He had to get home. You know,
Ricky's got shit to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's got a busy restaurant.
He does. Yeah, he does.
That's the underlining theme every time he's been on the show. It's been
Ricky got shit to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I was in the corner making cocktails. Matt was playing floor som, pouring wine. You two guys, I don't know what you guys were doing. I know Ricky was sweating a lot and making a lot of food. But
we were standing around not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is because we were traveling a lot over this weekend, I did give you guys, actually I would like to know, let's ask that as a question. How did you feel about my prep sheet for the things that I needed to be accomplished in the bar so I could make the cocktails that we wanted to provide for this evening?
Well, you know, I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty lengthy, but, you know, it didn't take too long to bang out. You know, the addition of the simple syrup recipe was clutch, though.
Right.
Yeah, because if you didn't put that there, They would have been no idea how
I
to make
figured I'm
it.
talking to chefs, not bartenders, so I wanted to be a little bit more articulate about what a simple syrup recipe is.
50 years of combined experience between Bill and I. We barely got it taken care of.
Yeah.
You.
Well, I threw you for a loop because I wanted timed simple syrup. So I was like, boys, just so you know, half sugar, half water, but you got to put the thyme inside the syrup and let it cool and then remove.
That's why a clock didn't work the first time.
Blow your mind. All right, guys.
All right, let's get into it.
The coolest thing is, so we were traveling to New York this weekend, came back today, landed at 1 o'clock at RDU, and then came out here. But while we were in New York, we went to this restaurant, and the server comes up to us and says, "Oh, I do have one special tonight. It's soft shell crab." And we said, "Oh my God, I bet you that's from North Carolina." She went and asked the chef. Turns out it absolutely was from North Carolina, and I said, "We caught this crab on Monday." It was the crab that we had caught on Monday
No shit.
in Colington.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing us out to the Outer Banks, but let's at least have a little bit of insight as to why you guys specifically do what you do with North Carolina fish, like why you're really doing it.
Just because we have an unbelievable passion for it. I mean, we had spent that time down in Colington, and y'all got a chance to meet Troy, who's one of my childhood friends, and we just have such an affection for it. We just think that what North Carolina and South Carolina too have, and Virginia has to offer, like you said, supplies a large part of the country, and seafood comes out of these waters. I mean, there's nothing like the Pamlico Sound anywhere, in the United States. There's nothing like it in most parts of the world. I mean, it's a massive piece of massive piece of water that has so much nutrients moving in and out of it, and it's just a huge abundance of amazing seafood that comes out of there. And not just the Pamlico Sound, but all the, Roanoke Sound, where we were in, and picking up those crab pots, Currituck Sound, Abermale Sound, Core Sound. I mean, they're just amazing places, and I think it's beautiful there. I think it's great. I think the abundance of seafood that comes out of there is amazing. And the great thing about it is it's all wonderful, and it comes back, and it's not hard for us to showcase it because it's so wonderful already.
Do we take this moment to out Maryland and let them know that all that Maryland crab that everyone talks about ain't coming from Maryland? It's actually coming from North Carolina.
Exactly.
And it might not be Maryland's fault, but it might have a lot to do with climate change and whatever, but things are moving south. And so the crabs themselves are shedding in Colington, in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's the epicenter. That's where things are happening.
And that's where they also created that whole shedding process and having the tubs and the water flowing back into the river or back into the sound.
Yeah, I mean, how cool was it to meet Murray Bridges?
Yeah,
I mean,
Murray
that
Bridges
guy is just. Well, I thought that was pretty awesome.
Can we take a moment to analyze his extremely unique accent?
That brogue accent.
He was pretty impressive down there. Down there.
Yeah. So, Bill, what do we get when we get out there, aside from just, of course, the crab? We went all around. We talked about crab because it was crab season. But typically, what are we fishing when we are out there?
When we were down there, I mean, when we went to O'Neill's for lunch, that's a prime example of what they have on display is what they have available. Gray tile, sheep's head. There was a gar eels that we had seen. So after y'all left, we had circled back around and ended up back at O'Neill's talking to those guys and had gotten some seafood, some fish to bring back. And they had some cool stuff back there that I had never seen that, who knows, it might make its way onto our menu here.
Nice.
But yeah, all those underutilized fish, those grunts, those things that we love to use, there's an abundance of them down there.
And you're speaking of O'Neill's, that was right there in the Wanches.
Yep.
Am I saying that
right? There in
Wanches, which is of the Native American tribe Wanches, but that's the indigenous tribe of the area, but also the region of which we speak, which is really known for shrimp, but a lot of seafood. And in fact, that same day, we went back to O'Neill's after So we're talking about O'Neill's, which is a great little seafood spot. You can go as a restaurant, you can eat food, you can get lunch, you can get dinner, but you also as a
seafood market.
It's a seafood market as well. You can buy wholesale and really get some serious product out there. But we were riding with Serge Falcoz-Vigne of Saint Jacques, and we also had a potluck that we were going to later that night, and we thought, well, hell, Matt and I, we're going, we got to make some food. We're here in the Outer Banks. We should utilize our resources. And we also are cruising around with a pretty awesome French chef. So we had first of the season crab, like lump crab. First pick of the crab, which couldn't be any more fresh. And we bought a few quart containers. And by the time we made it back to Saint Jacques, when we dropped off Serge 3.5 hours later in Raleigh, we opened up the kitchen and Serge put in duck prosciutto, foie gras, shallots,
fresh dill,
garlic, sour cream, a little Old Bay seasoning, and it was, and no offense, Serge, when you hear me say this, so good. it was so good.
Yeah. You knew that crab was swimming within days of that time. And that's one of the things that I love about being able to go to the docks and getting this this fresh fish is it's fresh. There is no fresher than this.
Right.
And tonight you guys did this crab dinner with Ricky Moore, and obviously used the crabs from out there. So it begs the question. We'll post the menu so you guys can see what you can do with crab. But what's the next one? What's going to be the next dinner?
We've been throwing some ideas around. We'd like to do a dinner with Nunzio.
Nunzio Scorville of Driftwood.
That's right.
He's awesome.
He is, and we like him. We've met him at a couple events. We just like hanging out with him.
Yeah,
and he's worked at some really cool places down in Alabama, and so we kind of like him. We just want to hang out.
He's actually in Italy as we speak.
I know.
I'm following his Instagram feed right now. It's awesome.
And that's nothing. He'll be somewhat fresh off the plane from Italy. I think what did he say? He's out there for 6 weeks or so.
He better come back inspired. You hear me, Nunzio?
And I've been following him on Facebook and Instagram too, and there's something about that Amalfi Coast and all that fresh seafood that they have out there is you know.
To paint the picture of tonight, we had a full house. I mean, it was a fantastic night. We had thunderstorms outside. I think all of middle North Carolina is being flooded as we speak. It's going to be a difficult drive on the way back, but the beautiful part was that we had multiple courses of soft shell crab, and
we had some amazing drinks and wine tonight from the NC F&B bar, which was clutch.
And Kellogg Selections provided the wine that Matt curated for all the different wines, and then I was in my corner making some cool cocktails. We had Social House Vodka, we had Durham Distillery, and we had Fair Game. And so I think in the end, everyone seemed extremely happy and they had a good time. And hey, if you get a bunch of wine, a bunch of crab, a bunch of cocktails, and a good price, I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, let's not have fun.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Matt,
thank you guys.
Let's close it up.
Thank you.
It's been a good journey.
Yeah, it's been like a 10-day journey, and it's fantastic that
from start to finish.
Yeah, that we were able to close it on down.
I'm ready for the next one. So anyway, for those of you out there, first of all, go out to the Pamlico Sound and all Roanoke and all these waters we mentioned. Get some fresh fish, support your local fishermen, support your crabbers, and let people when you're dining elsewhere know about where their fish came from, or ask the chefs. Other than that, come to Pittsburgh, come to Postal Fish Company, and you will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Guests of the NC F&B podcast receive a swag bag, including gifts from these exceptional North Carolina producers. Social House Vodka, Hungry Harvest, Alley 26 Tonic Syrup, Michael's English Muffins, Larry's Beans and 42 in Lawrence, Ramona Wine Coolers, and Happy Hour Vitamins. Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. I am the voice, Brian Hoyle. Join us next week when we travel to Pinehurst for the Chef and Maker series featuring Chef Paul Verica of the Stanley in Charlotte. That's next time, right here on the NC F&B podcast.
And we'll leave you with Captain David Wilson's impromptu speech on the docks of Wanchese, just on the backside of O'Neill's Seafood Market.
Yeah, I have charters on my boat from Pennsylvania, from Ohio, West Virginia, from everywhere, all over Indiana, out in Oklahoma. They come on my boat telling me that, oh, they shut down coal mining because of a rare salamander. Oh, they shut down building a freeway in Texas because of a jumping spot. Oh, they shut down farming in California because of a kangaroo. Oh, they shut down logging up in the Northwest because of a spotted owl. Just keep right on doing the math, and it's the same in the fisheries, but all of them are separated. Ours is all together. You see what I'm saying? Ours is all together. There's plenty of sea bass. If you go talk to any of the patrol boat guys, there's as many sea bass as there's ever been. There's as many tile fish as there's ever been, and they still regulate all of them. Now, the reason being the regulations, and if you said it best, the government has lied to everybody since the beginning, telling everybody that anything is wrong. Somebody still has to live. Somebody still has to swim camera, and somebody still has to